Billionaire crushed the maid's dignity in front of 300 unawares. She was marrying her mother, Vienna. Madison balanced the silver tray with practiced grace as she navigated through the glittering crowd of Manhattan's elite. The Whitmore estate's annual charity gala was in full swing, with 300 guests dressed in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, their laughter echoing off the crystal chandelier. She had worked for the Whitmore household for 8 months now, always invisible, always careful. Her black uniform was pressed perfectly, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, her face a mask of professional composure. She didn't belong here, not really. Vienna had come to America 3 years ago from Kenya with dreams of finishing her education, but life had other plans. Her father's medical bills back home consumed every penny she earned, forcing her to take whatever work she could find. Being a maid wasn't her dream, but it was honest work, and the Whitmores paid well. More champagne over here. A woman's voice called out, dripping with entitlement. Vienna moved swiftly, refilling glasses with a smile that never reached her eyes. She had learned early that wealthy people rarely saw the help. They looked through you, past you, as if you were furniture. It was easier that way, she told herself. No connections meant no complications. Mother, you've outdone yourself this year. Harrison Whitmore's voice cut through the ambient noise. Vienna's spine stiffened involuntarily. The billionaire tech entrepreneur was holding court near the main staircase, his custom Tom Ford suit fitting him like a second skin. At 30, he had built Whitmore Technologies into an empire, and his arrogance matched his bank account. Eleanor Whitmore, his mother, stood beside him in an elegant emerald gown. "Thank you, darling. This foundation means everything to me." Her voice carried warmth that her sons lacked. Vienna had noticed that about Mrs. Whitmore over the months. Despite her wealth, she treated the staff with kindness, always remembering names, asking about families. Vienna moved toward the kitchen to refill her tray, but fate had other plans. A guest stepped backward without looking, bumping directly into her. The tray tilted, and in horrible slow motion, 6 glasses of champagne tumbled through the air, splashing directly onto Harrison Whitmore's back. The room fell silent. 300 pairs of eyes turned toward the commotion. Harrison spun around, champagne dripping from his jacket, his face contorted with rage. What the hell? His eyes found Vienna, who stood frozen, the empty tray trembling in her hands. "You clumsy idiot." "Sir, I'm so sorry," Vienna began, her voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. "A guest bumped into me, and I don't want your excuses." Harrison's voice rose, commanding the attention of every person in the room. "Do you have any idea how much this suit costs? More than you make in a year, I'd wager." Vienna felt heat rising to her cheeks, but she maintained her composure. "It was an accident, sir. If you'll allow me to help clean, help." Harrison laughed, a cruel sound that made several guests shift uncomfortably. "You've helped enough. Tell me, how does someone so incompetent even get hired? Did you lie on your application, or are our standards really that low?" Eleanor stepped forward, her hand on her son's arm. "Harrison, please." It was clearly an accident. He shrugged her off. "Stay out of this, Mother. This is about accountability." He turned back to Vienna, his blue eyes cold as ice. "What's your name?" "Vienna Madison, sir." "Well, Vienna Madison, let me educate you about consequences. In my world, mistakes have prices. You're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out." He paused, looking around at the watching crowd. "Let this be a lesson to all the staff here. Excellence is expected, not optional. There's no room for carelessness in the Whitmore household." Vienna's hands clenched around the tray. Every fiber of her being wanted to scream, to defend herself, to tell this entitled man exactly what she thought of him. But she needed the reference, needed to leave with some dignity intact. She needed to think of her father, of the bills, of survival. I understand, sir, she said quietly, her voice not betraying the humiliation burning through her. The security guard approached, but Eleanor Whitmore raised her hand sharply. Stop right there, Marcus. Her voice carried an authority that made even her son pause. She turned to Harrison, her expression hardening in a way Vienna had never seen before. We need to talk. Privately. Now. Harrison's jaw tightened. Mother, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time. Eleanor's tone left no room for argument. She looked at Vienna with apologetic eyes. Miss Madison, please go to my study. Wait for me there. Don't leave the estate. Vienna nodded, grateful for the escape from 300 staring faces. She moved quickly through the service corridors, her mind racing. Why would Mrs. Whitmore want to see her? Perhaps to offer severance pay, or maybe to apologize for her son's behavior. Either way, Vienna's employment was finished. The study was a sanctuary of leather-bound books and warm lighting, so different from the cold opulence of the ballroom. Vienna stood by the window, looking out at the manicured gardens, trying to process what had just happened. 8 months of invisible service, destroyed in seconds. Not because of her incompetence, but because a careless guest had stepped backward and a powerful man needed someone to blame. 20 minutes later, Eleanor entered, closing the door behind her. She had removed her jewelry, and her face showed genuine distress. Miss Madison, please sit down. Mrs. Whitmore, I understand, I'm fired. I just need my final paycheck, and you're not fired. Eleanor settled into the chair across from her. My son was out of line. Completely, inexcusably out of line. Vienna blinked in surprise. But he said, Harrison doesn't run this household. I do. This estate, the staff, all of it is under my management. He may be the CEO of his company, but here I make the decisions. Eleanor leaned forward, her eyes intense. I saw what happened. That guest stepped into your path. You did nothing wrong. Relief flooded through Vienna, followed quickly by confusion. Then why did he react like that? Eleanor sighed deeply, suddenly looking older than her 57 years. Because he's forgotten what it means to be human. Success has made him cruel, and I'm partially to blame. After his father died, I threw myself into charity work, and Harrison threw himself into business. Somewhere along the way, he lost his empathy. She paused, studying Vienna carefully. Tell me about yourself. Where are you from? What are your dreams? The question caught Vienna off guard. I'm from Kenya, ma'am. I came here for university, but my father got sick. Cancer. I send most of my earnings home for his treatment. And what were you studying? Business administration. I wanted to help develop sustainable enterprises in East Africa. Vienna smiled sadly. That dream feels very far away now. Eleanor was quiet for a moment, then made a decision. I want to offer you a different position, not as a maid, but as my personal assistant. The pay is significantly better, and I'll cover your tuition if you want to return to school part-time. Vienna's breath caught. Mrs. Whitmore, I don't understand. Why would you do this? Because I see something in you. Dignity in the face of humiliation. Composure under pressure. Those are rare qualities. Eleanor stood, moving to her desk. And perhaps because I need someone around me who understands that wealth doesn't equal worth. Someone who can remind me, and maybe my son, what really matters. What about Harrison? He won't accept this. Harrison will learn to accept it, or he'll learn there are consequences for his behavior too. Eleanor's expression softened. Give me a chance, Vienna. Give yourself a chance. You deserve more than invisible service. Vienna felt tears threatening, but held them back. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Start Monday. And Vienna. Eleanor's smile was warm. Thank you for your grace tonight. You showed more class in that ballroom than most people in designer gowns ever will. 3 months passed, and Vienna's life transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined. As Eleanor's personal assistant, she managed schedules, coordinated charity events, and handled correspondence. Eleanor had been true to her word, enrolling Vienna in evening business courses at Columbia. The work was demanding but fulfilling, and Vienna felt herself growing, learning, becoming the person she'd always hoped to be. Harrison remained a problem. He avoided her when possible, and when avoidance wasn't an option, he treated her with cold formality. Vienna preferred it that way. The less interaction, the better. But Eleanor had other plans. "I need you to attend the board meeting tomorrow," Eleanor announced one Tuesday morning. They were in her office reviewing the Foundation's quarterly reports. "Harrison is presenting the new educational initiative, and I want your perspective." Vienna looked up sharply. "Mrs. Whitmore, I don't think that's wise. Your son barely tolerates my presence. Exactly why you should be there. He needs to see you as a professional, not as the maid he humiliated." Eleanor's expression was firm. "Besides, you have insights into sustainable development that could be valuable. This initiative focuses on tech education in underserved communities globally." The next day, Vienna entered the boardroom in a tailored navy suit, her natural hair styled in elegant twists. She carried Eleanor's tablet and notes, her posture confident. The 12 board members were already seated, and Harrison stood at the head of the table, his presentation displayed on the screen behind him. He froze mid-sentence when he saw her. "Vienna will be joining us," Eleanor said smoothly, taking her seat. "She's my assistant and will be taking notes." "Continue, Harrison." His jaw tightened, but he resumed his presentation. Vienna had to admit, despite her personal feelings, Harrison was brilliant. His vision for providing coding, education, and technology resources to communities in Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia was comprehensive and innovative, but she also noticed gaps, assumptions that revealed his distance from the realities on the ground. When he finished, the board members asked questions. Vienna remained silent, typing notes, until Eleanor spoke. "Vienna, you were nodding during the Africa segment. What are your thoughts?" Every eye turned to her. Harrison's expression was unreadable. Vienna took a breath. "The framework is excellent, but there are practical challenges. Internet infrastructure in rural Kenya, where I'm from, is unreliable. Solar-powered devices would be more sustainable than assuming grid electricity. Also, the curriculum should incorporate local languages initially, transitioning to English, rather than English-only instruction." Silence filled the room. Then one board member, an older woman named Patricia, leaned forward. "That's astute. Harrison, did your research team consider these factors?" Harrison's face remained impassive. "We focused on urban centers initially. Rural expansion is phase 2, but phase 2 fails if phase 1 doesn't account for scalability," Vienna said, then immediately regretted speaking again. This wasn't her place. Eleanor smiled. "Go on, Vienna. I just mean, if you're building an initiative for Africa, it should be designed with African realities in mind from the start. Partner with local organizations. Hire people who understand the communities you're trying to serve. Otherwise, it's just another foreign aid program that sounds good but doesn't work." Patricia nodded enthusiastically. "I like her. Can we keep her?" Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Harrison gathered his materials, his expression stony. "I'll have my team review these suggestions. Thank you for your input, Miss Madison." The meeting adjourned, and as people filtered out, Harrison approached Vienna. She braced herself for another public humiliation, but his voice was low, meant only for her. "You made me look unprepared in front of the board. I'm sorry if that's how it seemed. I was only trying to help. Were you?" His blue eyes searched hers. "Or were you trying to prove something?" "Maybe both," Vienna admitted. For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not warmth exactly, but recognition, as if he was finally seeing her as a person rather than a mistake. Eleanor's health scare came without warning. One morning, she called Vienna to her bedroom rather than her office, her voice weak. Vienna found her pale and shaking, barely able to sit up. "I'm calling an ambulance," Vienna said immediately, reaching for her phone. Double quotes, "No hospitals yet." Eleanor grasped her hand. "Just my medications." Top drawer, the blue bottle. Vienna found the prescription, her heart racing as she read the label. Heart condition. She'd had no idea. She helped Eleanor take the medication and insisted she rest, cancelling all appointments for the day. By evening, Eleanor seemed better, but remained in bed. Harrison arrived home early, something he rarely did. Vienna met him at the door of his mother's suite. What happened? His concern was genuine, the arrogance stripped away. "She had an episode this morning, heart-related. She's resting now. But Harrison, she needs to see her cardiologist. She refused to let me call for help." He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking younger, vulnerable. "She's stubborn, always has been. Ever since my father died, she's pushed herself too hard with the foundation work." He looked at Vienna properly for the first time. "Thank you for taking care of her. Of course. I care about your mother very much. I can see that." He moved toward Eleanor's door, then paused. "Vienna, I need to apologize. For the gala, for the way I've treated you. I was wrong." Vienna studied him, surprised by the admission. "What changed?" "Watching you these past months. You're not what I assumed you were. You're educated, insightful, dedicated, and you genuinely care about my mother, not because she pays you, but because of who she is." He met her eyes. "I judged you based on your job title, and that was ignorant and cruel." "Yes, it was," Vienna agreed quietly. "But I appreciate you saying it." Over the following weeks, Eleanor's condition stabilized, but the scare had shaken them all. Harrison began spending more time at the estate, and Vienna found herself in his company more often. They reviewed foundation initiatives together, debated strategies, and slowly, cautiously, built something resembling mutual respect. One evening, working late in Eleanor's study, Harrison set down his tablet. "Tell me about Kenya, about your family." Vienna hesitated, then found herself sharing stories about her father, a teacher who believed education could transform communities, about her mother, who died when Vienna was 12, about her younger brother who wanted to be a doctor. Harrison listened, really listened, asking questions that showed genuine interest. In return, he shared his own story, the pressure of living up to his father's legacy, the loneliness of his success, the fear that he was becoming the kind of person he used to despise. "My father was kind," Harrison said quietly. "Brilliant, successful, but kind. I don't know when I lost that part of him in me. Maybe you didn't lose it. Maybe you just buried it under armor. It's still there." He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You see things clearly, don't you? No filters." "I can't afford filters. My life doesn't allow for pretense. I'm beginning to understand that." He stood to leave, then turned back. "Vienna, I'd like to take you to dinner, not as employer and employee, as to people who might be becoming friends." Vienna's pulse quickened. This was dangerous territory. "I don't think that's appropriate." "Why?" "Because of what happened at the gala. I thought we were past that. Because your mother is my employer. Because the power dynamic makes it complicated. Because..." She stopped, unsure how to articulate the fear that kindness might turn back to cruelty. "Because you don't trust me yet," Harrison finished. "I understand. I haven't earned that. But I'd like the chance to try." Vienna considered his words, seeing in his eyes the same vulnerability he'd shown the day his mother collapsed. Maybe people could change. Maybe second chances weren't always mistakes. "Dinner," she agreed. "As friends, nothing more." His smile was genuine. "Nothing more, I promise." Dinner became dinners. Conversations became confessions. Slowly, carefully, Vienna and Harrison built something unexpected. He showed her the man beneath the billionaire, someone still learning, still struggling to reconcile his privilege with purpose. She showed him the world beyond his bubble, sharing perspectives that challenged his assumptions. Eleanor watched their growing connection with knowing eyes, but said nothing, only smiled when she caught them laughing together in the garden or debating passionately over foundation strategies. 6 months after the gala that had changed everything, Eleanor called Vienna to her study. Her expression was serious, tinged with nervousness that immediately put Vienna on alert. "Sit down, dear. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have mentioned months ago, but I was selfish and wanted more time." Vienna's stomach tightened. "Are you ill again?" "No, nothing like that. It's about me and Harrison." Eleanor took a deep breath. "I'm getting married." Relief flooded through Vienna, followed by happiness. "Mrs. Whitmore, that's wonderful. Who is he?" "His name is James Carter. We met through the foundation. He's a professor of international development at NYU, widowed 5 years ago. He's kind, intelligent, and he makes me happy in ways I thought I'd never feel again after my husband died." "Then why do you look so worried?" Eleanor's smile was sad. "Because I'm terrified of how Harrison will react. He's protective of his father's memory. And there's something else. James is black. He's originally from Jamaica, and while that doesn't matter to me, I fear Harrison might not be ready to accept it." Vienna felt a chill. "You think he'll object because of race?" "I think my son has come a long way, thanks largely to you, but I don't know if he's come far enough, and I refuse to hide James or be ashamed of loving him. If Harrison can't accept this, it will break my heart, but I won't end my relationship." "When will you tell him?" "Tonight, at dinner. I'd like you to be there, if you're willing. Your presence might help him keep perspective." That evening, the 4 of them gathered in the formal dining room. James Carter was exactly as Eleanor described, warm and genuine, with kind eyes and an easy laugh. He treated Eleanor with tender respect that made Vienna's heart ache with happiness for her. Harrison was polite but guarded, his businessman face firmly in place. They made small talk through the first course, but the tension was palpable. Finally, Eleanor set down her fork. "Harrison, James, and I have something to tell you. We're engaged. We're getting married in 3 months." Silence stretched across the table. Harrison's expression was unreadable. "Congratulations," he said finally, his voice neutral. "When did this happen?" "Last week. James proposed at the Botanical Gardens." Eleanor reached for James's hand. "I know this is sudden, and I know you might have complicated feelings about it, but I love him, and I'm hoping you can be happy for me." Harrison stood abruptly, his napkin falling to the floor. "Excuse me, I need some air." He left the room, and Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "I knew this would be difficult." Vienna stood. "Let me talk to him." She found Harrison on the terrace, staring out at the city lights. "She deserves to be happy," Vienna said softly, standing beside him. "I know that," Harrison said, his voice tight. "It's not about him being black, if that's what you're thinking. It's about her moving on from my father. It feels like betrayal, even though I know that's irrational. Your father's been gone 6 years. Would he want your mother to be alone forever? No, he'd want exactly this. Someone who loves her, treats her well, makes her laugh." Harrison turned to Vienna. "Why is letting go so hard?" "Because love doesn't end when someone dies, but it can make room for new love too. That's not betrayal, that's survival." Harrison nodded slowly, then straightened his shoulders. "I should go back in and apologize." "Yes, you should." The wedding was beautiful, intimate, held in the estate gardens with 50 close friends and family. Eleanor wore champagne silk, her happiness radiating. James stood at the altar with tears in his eyes as his bride approached. Harrison walked his mother down the aisle, his own eyes suspiciously bright. When the officiant asked who gave Eleanor away, Harrison's voice was strong. I do, with my blessing and my love. Vienna watched from her seat, overwhelmed by how far they'd all come. After the ceremony, as guests mingled during the reception, Harrison found her. Dance with me. She took his offered hand, and they moved together to a slow jazz melody. Your mother looks happy, Vienna said. She does, and I realize now that's all that matters. He pulled back slightly to meet her eyes. Vienna, these past months with you have changed me. You've challenged me to be better, to see beyond my limited perspective. You've made me want to be the kind of man my father was, the kind of man who deserves someone like you. Vienna's heart raced. Harrison, I know we said friends, but I'm in love with you, Vienna. Completely, irrevocably in love with you. And I need you to know that before another day passes. Tears blurred her vision. The night of the gala, you humiliated me in front of 300 people. You made me feel worthless. I know. And I will spend the rest of my life proving I'm not that man anymore. If you'll let me. He stopped dancing, taking both her hands. I don't expect you to love me back. I just needed you to know how I feel. Vienna looked at this man who had been her worst nightmare and had become something entirely different. She saw his growth, his genuine remorse, his efforts to be better. But more than that, she saw herself reflected in his eyes, valued, respected, loved. I don't forgive easily, she said quietly, and I won't forget what happened. I don't want you to forget. That night should haunt me. It reminds me of who I never want to be again. But, Vienna continued, a smile breaking through, I believe people can change. I've watched you change. And somewhere along the way, I fell in love with who you're becoming. Harrison's face lit up with joy and disbelief. You love me. Against my better judgment, yes. He kissed her then, soft and reverent, as if she were precious beyond measure. Around them, guests began to applaud, Eleanor's delighted laughter ringing out above the rest. Later, as the party wound down, Eleanor pulled Vienna aside. My son told me he's in love with you, and from that kiss, I gather the feeling is mutual. Vienna blushed. Is this terribly inappropriate? You're my employer. You're far more than an employee, Vienna. Your family. You've been family since the night you showed more grace under fire than anyone I've ever known. Eleanor took her hands. My son needed someone to see past his wealth to his heart, someone who would hold him accountable while helping him grow. He found that person in you. He's not the same man who fired me. No, he's not. But neither are you the same woman who got fired. You've both grown, separately and together. That's what love should do. 6 months later, Vienna graduated from Columbia with her business degree. Harrison and Eleanor sat in the audience, cheering louder than anyone when her name was called. Her father, his cancer in remission, had flown in from Kenya, tears streaming down his face. As Vienna crossed the stage, she thought about the journey that had brought her here, from humiliation to triumph, from invisibility to being truly seen, from a maid dismissed as worthless to a woman who knew her worth. She had learned that dignity couldn't be taken, only surrendered, that second chances were worth the risk, that love could transform not just people, but entire lives. And standing in her cap and gown, surrounded by those who loved her, Vienna Madison finally believed she deserved every bit of happiness she had found.